Welcome to Whispering Pines Farm's YouTube channel. My name is Jennifer Johnson and I raise Shetland sheep for their wool. In this video I'm skirting a fleece from one of the ewes in our flock whose fleece is going to be featured in our 2024 auction. Her name is Barbarina. She's a fawn catmugget ewe. She's 2 years old and she's in that group of 2-year-old fawn catmuggets that ended up being incredibly sweet and friendly. So if I were forced to pick her out in the group, I wouldn't be able to, which I really am not proud to say that, but I know there's a lot of ewes in my flock that I know really well, like Mimi, and I know them all really well, but the ones that are like very attentive and stuff. And there's like 3 or 4 of these little fawns that I'm trying to distinguish them. You can tell I feel badly about it. But so this is a Roo'd fleece, and rooing is where you take advantage of the break in the fleece and you pluck it from them versus shearing. I Roo'd her last year, so this is a Roo'd fleece off of Roo'd tips. And what that means is that there's no second cuts on either the top or the bottom, so everything is pretty much as nature intended. This is not a dense fleece, as you can see me as I'm struggling to kind of lay it down flat. Very light gossamer style fleece. She's got a micron count of 19.1, which would explain that. So just really, really soft. All right, so taking a look at this. I see some bits that I'm going to take off because it's going to be offered as a raw fleece to hand spinners. There's going to be dirt on the tips of all fleeces that you source from us, and I would go so far as to say from any farm. But it's easily scoured out. You know, if you're going to hand scour this, or, you know, I don't know if there's a mill that would take one of these smaller fleeces that it's barely 2 pounds. But you might, who knows. So the fleece auction starts June 22nd, runs to June 29th. That's 2 Saturdays, so it's a 7-day duration. And it ends at 6 p.m. Eastern time. So if this is your first time participating in our fleece auction, I'll give you a couple pointers. Number one is set up an account in advance so that you're not trying to set up an account while you're in the midst of the last day of bidding, if that's your strategy. So that's my first piece of advice. And the second piece of advice is be at a computer that has a good internet connection at 6 o'clock on Saturday, because a lot of times the fleeces get bid up at the last minute. So you might think you've clinched it, and you might not. So just throw that out there. All right, I think I feel okay about this. Some of these perimeter pieces still have some dirt on them, but I think that they're not too bad, and I want to make sure you get a little bit of the darker wool if you wanted to try and do any kind of color work or gradient or anything. So let's get a photograph of the back of the fleece. So this is going to get put up on my website, and between now and the 29th you can go on there and look at it, collect all your data, compare it with others, whatever you want to do. If this were my fleece, if I were processing this fleece, a lot of these pieces would go directly on the drum carder, very gently, on a good high density drum carder. Mine is 128 TPI. Textured bats, or I would pull it off with a diz to get textured roving and spin it like that. And you're going to get a little bit of texture in your yarn, but you won't get the waste you would get if you were to try to flick or comb it. And then maybe some of these perimeter pieces, maybe those I would flick and either incorporate them in with the direct to the drum carder, or apply them with the textured, so you've got some kind of, you know, of an interesting combination thing going on there. I'm only going to flip this one side. She's not spotted, so it's very, you know, both sides are going to be very similar in terms of shading. This one seems to be more manageable. So she does have a little side dusting here. There's some lighter or darker, not real dark. And then there's pretty dark around the perimeter. So let's get a photograph of this. I'm working in the back of the barn. It's a new addition for us. So this is my first time ever that I'm skirting back here, and I love it. Today is really windy. Last year I would not have been able to skirt today. It's a really windy day. It's like 80 degrees out. And the sheep are taking advantage of the windiness. It cools them nicely when they're out there. Although they were just in here a little bit ago, but then they went right back out when I came out. So they don't spend a lot of time in the barn in the summer. Mostly they come in to cool off. Other than that, they're out on the pasture. Which is why I don't do Facebook Fridays. During the winter and the spring, I do a live on Friday at noon, and it's not every Friday, but I try to do it as often as I can. But during the summer, it's just so hit or miss. They're usually not here. All right, let's get a lock sample. We're going to take it from the same spot where I take my micron sample. This is really a good staple length, probably 3 inches, if not a little more. Yeah. It bounced back to 3 when I sat it down. It's very bouncy, very crimpy, really fine crimp. I would think even if you did do a textured bat, that you'd be able to draft it and get something really nice and fine. That's what I would do. So this is my last batch of fleeces. I'm going to try and get them all done today. So here me in my black daisy shirt, what might be the last series of videos. All right, so that's that. So I'm going to roll these up and get a weight. And that'll be Barbarina. Barbarina's name came from the opera year. I'm not sure what opera it's from, her name. It's we had a lot of girls that year, and I think because we were doing this on a Facebook Live, we were all kind of really scraping the barrel. Scraping the bottom of the barrel for good names. This year I'm naming the lambs, 2024 lambs are going to be named after birds. I always have a convention that I use each year. So, and I slip that during the lambing video, and I got an amazing response from people with ideas for names. And I'm going to do the naming as a Facebook Live, so we can all do it together, although I get final say. All right, let's just see what this weight is, and then we can. $20.8, just a little nice fleece. Oh, sweetheart. So it's 3 inches, 20.8. All right, that's Barbarina's fleece. Thank you so much for stopping by to watch this video. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you can come back soon.